In today's video, we are going to go through kind of a condensed stance control progression. Now, this video is really intended for those of you that kind of feel like there's all these videos and you really don't know what videos to focus on. Well, I'm going to condense everything down into what I would consider kind of like a pre-gait warm-up. So before you start working on walking training, if you are someone that has weakness in one leg, this would be like a condensed version of like a warm-up that targets all of the key components that I think are essential to optimizing, maximizing, improving, whatever word you want to throw in there, being able to stand on one leg, which of course is half of the walking cycle. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to talk about who this routine is appropriate for. So definitely stick around. You are probably someone who falls into one of the categories that I'm going to talk about today. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara, I'm a neurologic physical therapist, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything related to mobility, health, fitness, and mindset in the context of neurologic injury with the end goal of empowering you with as many tools as possible to take ownership of your rehab and your health to live an overall more active, more mobile, pain-free, happier, healthier life. So first, let me just talk about what the inspiration was behind this video. So I've been getting some questions lately of, do I focus on long distance walking, or should I focus on slowing my walking down and working more on the specifics of walking? And to answer that question, because this is important to determine whether or not these exercises are right for you, I think it's a combination of both. And I don't think I can be the one that makes the decision for any one person. I will say, generally speaking, if you are in the first 2 years, my opinion, and it differs from a lot of my colleagues, but my opinion is I would focus more on quality movement, meaning slowing the walking down, because that's when your brain is in the most learning phase or the most optimized phase for learning. And so doing a lot of like bad movements, you're going to ingrain those patterns long term. Now, with that said, there's plenty of data out there, and where my colleagues may disagree with me is that there's plenty of data out there that says that to get all the benefits from the rewiring or the neuroplasticity, high intensity activity is required. So getting the heart rate up is an important component to kind of moving that ship along, getting all of the brain chemicals necessary to get those new neural connections to actually happen. So my suggestion is quality movement, if and only if you can find some other means of getting that moderate intensity activity in. So whether that is doing an elliptical, which I've talked about before, walking in a pool for exercise, not necessarily for movement retraining because it doesn't carry over to level ground, something where you can get your heart rate up. Even an arm bike, I think, is a good way to work on that, getting that moderate intensity activity in. But in the first 2 years, focus on quality movement as long as you're getting that moderate intensity exercise activity in. Now, I would say 2 to 5 years, and I've done a whole video on this. I will link that video in the description below. But 2 to 5 years, I think, is open to your life, your lifestyle, your goals, things like that. I would say you're kind of coming out of that really like rapid progress that you get from that neural rewiring. So getting some longer distance walking in is beneficial just for overall fitness and overall health. And so you can transition a little bit, but I still think that your brain is still rewiring and it still has the potential to learn. So still working on quality movement, could it be beneficial? Now, if you're someone that has a lot of time, I would say if you're in this phase and maybe you haven't returned to work yet, doing like 20 to 30 minutes of quality movement training every day, in addition to getting in that 30 to 45 minutes of kind of fitness training, is ideal. So if you're someone that you can do an elliptical, you don't need to use walking as your mode of getting that intensity, that moderate intensity activity in, then I would probably choose a different mode so that the quality movement training you're doing kind of doesn't get disrupted by just going in and doing all these compensatory patterns and walking these long distances. All right, so that's like the 2 to 5 year range. And then I would say 5 years and beyond, I would say it really depends on the person. So I have some people that I see that really, really want to work on quality movement because either they're having pain or they don't like the aesthetics of it or the way it looks. And I think that's absolutely okay. And actually, I encourage that. And I do think that you can still work on it. And I see people that are in that range of 5 to 10 years post that are making improvements because they focus on it. They do a lot of the learning drills that are required, meaning they really work on it in a closed environment without distractions to optimize that learning potential. And then they carry it over into walking. And when they're walking, they're thinking about it and getting that knee to relax when they're swinging it through, shifting their weight onto that leg. They have the mental capacity and the motivation to continue to work on all those things. However, I do think this is the time where for some people that becomes discouraging. And in that case, I would say you're probably at a phase where if you did the longer distance walking for exercise and just for overall mental health, that you're not going to do as much damage or set yourself back as much as you would have in the earlier stages when your brain was really doing a lot of that rewiring. So if you enjoy walking longer distances and maybe you use a cane or you compensate, I think that's 1000% okay. And I would say that do that. But if you can, in addition to that, maybe this video is right for you because I'm going to go through a condensed version of like a progression so you don't forget all the little nuances or all the little components that go into walking, just to kind of keep your brain a little bit more kind of connected with normal walking. This progression will be good for you today. So I hope that makes sense. I would say that if you're in the early stages, probably some of the longer videos I've done on this are probably more beneficial. If you're in that 2 to 5 year range, I would say that definitely if you're someone that enjoys walking, this video that we're going to go through today would be a good little 5 to 8 minute program that you could go through every day that's not going to like consume your exercise routine, but will just be a small component of it. And then especially if you're someone that you're over it, you're over the quality movement therapy, you're 10 years post and you feel like you've done all that you can, then I would say that this is definitely probably something that's going to fit into your lifestyle because it's only 5 or 10 minutes. And then I would say another category on top of that is if you're someone that you've been doing great for years and years and you've been safe, but you've had a lot of compensatory habits and now you're starting to have pain, maybe incorporating some of the drills that we're going to go through today might be beneficial for you, and it's in a condensed version, so it's not going to take up a whole lot of your time. So I hope all that makes sense as far as the exercises that we're going to go through today. And then there's one other thing that I want to add, that in recent months, I've been seeing people here in person that have found me on YouTube and have been watching my videos for a really long time. And one thing that is kind of keeps popping up that's a little bit concerning to me is that everyone is super focused on why? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Why does my shoulder drop? Like they are almost too focused on the quality movement. So I'd say I know that I started this channel because I know a lot of you guys were missing that component in your rehab programs, but I would say there is a point where you can overthink it. Now remember, we didn't think about walking the first time around when we learned as infants or toddlers. So thinking about it definitely can be counterproductive. And then also like obsessing about like one little specific thing, like the circumduction, why am I doing that? Or, the knee locking out, why am I doing that? Sometimes that can affect your motivation as well. So I'd say there is a fine line here between, being aware of it and maybe addressing some of these things, but not being overly consumed by it. Remember, the most important thing is that you can live your life the way that you want to live your life, doing the things that you want to do and enjoying them. And so if you can mark all of those things off of your list, I would say you're on the right track and maybe you don't need to focus on maybe a little like hitch in your gait or a little like you know, I hear all kinds of things, but like a little limp or whatever, maybe you don't need to focus on that. If you are getting all of that, those other components out of your movement, then I would say maybe not worry about it. But all that said, one last thing, as I've been doing recently, there will be a handout with this progression in it. Link to get access to that handout is in the description below, so you don't have to keep coming back to this video. You can just take the handout with you, and it'll have all the exercises in order with pictures and descriptions on how to do the exercises. So now that we have all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this routine. All right, so for a lot of you guys, this is not going to be anything new. These are all going to be exercises that you've seen before, but it's going to be a condensed version. Now, this is the same progression I go through with anyone who has a gait-related goal. When I see them in person, sometimes we spend a little bit more time on this little progression. If someone's really high level, we'll spend very brief amount of time on it, but we still go through it. I consider it kind of like a warm-up, and I think that's how you should view it as well. So the first one is just a weight shift. You're just I call that loading the leg. So we're working on, again, remember, we're working on the stance phase of walking in this video. If you want me to do another progression on the swing phase, I can do that depending on how many people respond, because I have done videos on that before. We'll determine whether or not I make a video on the swing phase. But today we're just going to go over the standing phase. You're just shifting. Remember, as I've said in many videos, goal is belly button over the foot. Belly button over the foot. Belly button over the foot. All right, now you're going to do a weight shift with a heel lift. Same thing. You want to get that belly button over the foot. And now is the time when you want to focus on, if it's a concern of yours, you want to focus on some of those patterns or things that you see when you walk that you don't like. So if you're someone that your hip pops out or your shoulders drop, do it in front of a mirror. And when you unload the other leg, that's probably when that hip pops out to the side when you're walking. That's when you want to really focus on not a particular muscle, because I get a lot of you that say that too. I'm trying to fire my glutes. Listen, none of us know how to fire our glutes. So I would say focus more just on staying vertical, staying in an upright position. And shift and lift. Show it to you from the side. Shift, lifting this heel. You're unloading this leg. Unloading this leg. Getting all that weight onto this leg. Shift and lift. Shift and lift. Shift and lift. All right, and then next we're going to move to a furniture slider. And again, you guys have seen this before, but you're going to do the shift and lift and slide. Now, I have gotten this question recently a lot too, is how do you stop your knee from locking out? This is really where that knee is probably going to want to lock out. So that's when you really want to focus on keeping that knee bent. And you're just going to slide this foot out to the side. So slight bend in the knee, sliding that other foot out to the side. And again, if you're someone that stays flexed over, your hip pops out to the side, and now is when you want to focus on it. Just stay nice and upright. Out to the side. Out to the side. Then you're going to go forward. Then you're going to slide it back. Now, with your foot still on the ground, you're not totally unloading this leg, so it's still easier than when you actually have to take a step. Don't skip over this step, especially if you're someone who you're trying to like stop your hip from popping out to the side or your knee from hyperextending. This would be the drill that you would want to spend the most time on. Again, because your foot stays on the ground, it's not as much of a demand on this leg. And slide it in all directions. If you're a little bit higher level, this would be where I would add maybe like a little bit of rotation, crossing midline. All right, so far, everything we've done, both feet have been on the ground. So now we're gonna kind of start progressing to more single leg standing. All right, so now we're gonna try and shift and pick the leg up and set it on the yoga block. For some of you that are new, the reason I like a yoga block, and I've explained this in other videos, is for most people, the reason they can't stand on one leg is because they don't shift over enough onto that leg. And so if you do that with the yoga block and you're not shifted over enough, you're going to tip the yoga block over. So you really have to be shifted all the way over this leg in order to not tip it over, right? So that's a pretty common way that people lose their balance, is back towards this side because they're not shifted enough. So that's what you're going to focus on. You're just going to stand on it. Try not to let your body fall that way, really working on getting your weight centered over that foot. And then the way that you advance it is you just turn the yoga block lengthwise, and then that requires a little bit more work. And again, some of my patients, well, no one really argues with me. No one really ever objects to it, but I'm sure they get tired of it because we do it every session before we start walking for the most part. And I think you should do the same thing, even if you're higher level. All right, and then from there, what I usually do before we go to full single leg standing is standing in tandem. So this is pretty close to single leg standing, especially if you don't shift all your weight to your front leg. So you really have to make sure you're keeping all your weight on your back leg, and you're just going to hold it. If that's easy for you and you're higher level, then usually we'll just add like an arm circle, just to challenge that balance just a little bit more on that leg. And so for some people that are higher level, you might not have to start all the way at the beginning. You might be able to start here. However, I would really make sure you're successful at all the other steps. But again, for most of you, depending on where you're at, you're going to start in a different place. This will be like a 5-minute routine because you're probably not going to need to do all of these exercises. If you're in the earlier stages, we've probably already covered everything that you're going to be working on. If you're in the later stages, you might be able to skip over some of those earlier ones and then make that figure 8 big. All right, and then try and do it the other way, figure 8. And then from there, usually what we do is we go to like some variation of a deadlift, a single leg deadlift. Now I've done a whole video on single leg deadlifts, so this is just part of like a progression. This isn't the whole progression on how to get to a deadlift, but if you're at this point and you're standing balance and you've done everything else in this video, then the next one we do is we do little mini deadlifts with a kickstand. And then we do little deadlifts with a foot lift. And then if you're at this level, then we usually will do like a little crossover, crossing midline, lifting that back foot. All right, now we start moving to a little bit of a less stable surface, soft knee, not letting that knee lock out. And then we just work on single leg standing. There's no perfect method to this. It doesn't have to look perfect. The only thing that we focus on is increasing the amount of time you can stand on that leg. So if you happen to sway a little bit, that's okay. That's actually your brain learning. So 1000% acceptable to not look perfect, right? Every time you lose your balance and you correct it and you don't set this foot down, your brain's learning. And so we just work on increasing that time. We usually shoot for 3 seconds to start, and then we just increase from there. I would say a good goal is 10 seconds if you wanted to be like, have like perfect for your age, or, win on some of those standardized tests. Yes, some of you use that word, so that you want to like really score high on some of those standardized tests. 10 seconds would probably be a good goal to shoot for. All right, and then same thing, you're going to lift that leg and then just work on those figure eights again. Again, depending on what your issue is, you want to remember all the things you thought about earlier. Not letting the shoulder drop, not letting the hip pop out, not letting the knee hyperextend if you're at this level. Hopefully you already know kind of how to do those things because this is a pretty advanced skill. And then if you want, you can add those figure eights. All right, and now the last one is probably the most advanced, is like one of those air discs. Now, this is really going to challenge the ankle muscles a lot more. So I always tell people, start with the same progression like we did when you were standing on the ground. Kind of keep this toe down, get your belly button centered over this foot, and then really make sure that you're getting pressure off of this. So if you feel like there's a lot of pressure on this leg, don't pick this foot up. I see a lot of people do that. You really want to like feel like, okay, all my weight's on this leg, and then try and pick this foot up. Right? And you're gonna shake a little bit, right? That's part of that's just like your body just getting used to being on this very unstable surface. But again, the goal is like 10 seconds. And again, this whole routine shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes. That's the whole goal of making this video, is to condense everything down. Early stages, you probably have cut this off already and you aren't doing these higher level ones. If you're higher level and you're at this stage, you're going to slide that scale down a little bit, skip some of the early ones, and kind of do some of these higher level ones. But again, 5 to 10 minutes, I think, whether you're 5 years or 10 years, there's some value. And stand. If not, just a cool party trick to share with your friends. Because I'm sure some of your friends can't even stand on something like this if you're older. So if you're like 65 and up, I would say maybe like 75 and up, you're probably one of few of your friends that can do this. All right, and then that is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I know it was a review for a lot of you, but again, it's just all condensed, so it shouldn't take you more than 5 to 8 minutes. I would probably pick 3 to 4 of the exercises that I went through today and spend 2 to 3 minutes on each one. That's probably how I'd break it down. You don't want to overwhelm with too many exercises. I think it's better to do fewer exercises and spend a little bit more time on them and really perfect them. So 2 to 3, 3 to 4, somewhere in there, and then just spend 2 to 3 minutes on each of the exercises. Don't forget, there's a handout that goes along with this video. Link to get instant access to that handout is in the description below. If you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel. It really does help this channel to reach more people and help more people. So if you've been watching for a while and you haven't yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so that you will get notified every time I upload new videos. If you want exercises throughout the week, you can head on over to Instagram, where I post 1 to 2 videos every single week. Not here on YouTube. If you want to go a little bit deeper, I highly recommend you join our Gold Monthly program. With that program, you will get instant access to over 400 exercises that I personally use with my patients that I see in person. They're part of my home exercise program. In addition to access to that home exercise library, you will also get access to our Discord channel, where you can interact with other members throughout the week, and you can ask me questions, and I pop in there 2 to 3 times a week just to answer your specific questions, as well as you will be able to join our monthly lives, where you can submit questions in advance and I answer those questions live. So more information to get signed up for that Gold Monthly program is in the description below, or you can visit rehab-hq.com. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good day.